It's 2025. If you are not using your dreams, bro, to stalk someone, what are you even doing at that point? Like, what are you doing? And I'm surprised this isn't a bigger thing actually, because I was reading something the other day on this dream website, and it was talking about apparently it's possible to figure out the problems of someone through your dreams. And so someone may have problems that you don't know about, and you can figure them out through your dreams, not only if you don't know this person, right? But even if you only have a fucking photo of them, bro. So there was a study that showed if you have a photo of a random person you do not know and have never seen, you can figure out the life problems of that person. And of course, that means then you can probably figure out more shit about their life. And I'm kind of cynical about this stuff, I guess, more than most people. So I read this and I was like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is that, bro? But I actually started reading this study, and they got a big class of just your average psychology students. They weren't into dreams or like trained in anything related to dreams or any of this shit. They were just students, college students, and they got them to look at a picture of this woman who had a health issue, and they were told this woman had a health issue, and then they were told to incubate a dream about this woman and see if they could try and figure out the issues this woman had through the dream incubation. So just choosing what to dream about. And they gave the researcher two dreams before this. So just two normal dreams as like a baseline. And then after the dream incubation, they gave two more dreams with the woman as like the subject of the dreams. And the students and the instructor didn't know this woman and didn't actually know the problem of this woman either. I don't even think the instructor knew the problems of the woman, because it was just given by like some friend or something like that. And so they had very interesting dreams about this woman. Some of them were more specific to the issue than others. They also created a way to like kind of measure the dreams and see how accurate the things in the people's dreams were the woman's problem. So like if you had a kind of thing in your dream that was symbolic a little of the problem, that would get like a 1 rating, right? And then if you dreamt of something that was like exactly the fucking problem the woman had, that would get like a 5. And so they could use this rating to kind of like see if there was a statistically significant higher chance that the people who try to dream about the person's problems could actually do that. And so there were interesting dreams. One dream was this person was in like a kind of grassy area and a storm was incoming, right? And then they went into the house and they kind of dreamt that there was this woman there and she had a knife in her breast. And then the next scene was that they were in the hospital with this woman, and this was the woman in the picture. So they successfully incubated a dream with them. And then the doctor in the dream said they couldn't take the knife out of the woman's breast because it would cause bleeding and kind of kill her, right? And then another interesting dream someone had was that this links into the whole thing, okay? Was that they were in a room with this woman in the image, and she reached up to the ceiling to grab some money like from the ceiling, bro. But as she grabbed the money, her arm kind of started burning and started turning black, and this black kind of plague started spreading to her chest, to her breast area. And so these were some of the more specific dreams some of the students had, because it turned out the issue of this woman they were trying to incubate actually was recently diagnosed with breast cancer, bro. She was fucking diagnosed with breast cancer. So you can see some of the dreams these people had were very, very accurate to the woman's problems, even though they didn't know this woman, they didn't know any of her health issues or anything. And so they found that the people who incubated the dreams about her problem, they got like statistically higher on those ratings, right? But this study was kind of small. It was very interesting, in that kind of proves an interesting thing in of itself, but they wanted to do something more comprehensive, right, bro? So they got a bigger class of students, and they did a similar study in that they got all these students to give 2 baseline dreams before incubation, and then they got them to incubate a dream of a woman who had issues and they needed to do the exact same thing. There were a few differences in this one though, in that they were actually taught to incubate dreams better. So they weren't kind of just doing it by themselves. They actually attended seminars to better incubate dreams. And I think if I'm correct, they had a few weeks to kind of pull this off. And the other thing with this is that there was a control group that was actually given an image of a woman who wasn't real, bro. So it was a computer generated person. So you had half the students got the real woman with real problems, and then the other half got the computer generated image. So it was kind of seeing like, would the people with the computer generated image also see problems? And would those problems be accurate, right? Because it could just be the case that they're told you need to incubate dreams with someone who has an issue, so that makes them dream of the issues and whatever, kind of that stuff. So the control group was actually a really smart idea. And of course, they weren't told that the person was computer generated. And none of the students knew it was computer generated, so much that when the study ended and they were told that they were looking at a computer generated person, actually a lot of them were really pissed and annoyed because they thought it was a real person, and they kind of felt betrayed, and so the professor had to give them like 2% higher grade for their project or some shit because they kind of felt betrayed. But this study once again showed that the people who looked at the real image, bro, had fucking statistically higher hits. They're called hits of kind of accurate representations of the woman's problem compared to the people who didn't look at the image or looked at the image of the computer generated person, who actually, the people who did that, kind of stuttering, but the people who looked at the computer generated person didn't really have any statistically higher hits or anything. And once again, the people who looked at the real image had some really accurate representations of this woman's problems. And the woman's problems, bro, were fucking stupidly, I don't know, just there were so many. She had sclerosis, I think I'm pronouncing that right, in her hands. So I don't really know the specifics of that, but it's like an issue with your hands. They can get really stiff, and she was taking medication for that. She was also taking care of her mother with lung cancer. Her husband was also killed in an accident where one of his limbs was severed. She was also recently in a car crash with her cousin, and her cousin was killed. Her son was also in a car crash recently, and he wasn't killed, but he was recovering. And so now she was in a new marriage with this person, and this was good, but they were kind of trying to heal from all their issues and their bad luck. But the husband was dealing with a very expensive divorce as well. So all these fucking horrendous issues this woman had, I was reading it like, what the fuck is going on, bro? And I was laughing, not because it was funny, but I was laughing because I was like, how the fuck can one person have this many issues? That's really bad, actually. And so I saw even one dream was like someone dreamt that she kind of drove over this woman's husband and fucking killed her, even though the dreamer had no idea that she had a husband or her husband had died. And then the dreamer woke up crying. This was one of the students, right? Once again, as I said, the people who looked at the real image got statistically higher hits. So this whole thing was just crazy, and the researchers had no idea how this thing happened. They had some theories, but they didn't know how that happened, because it's like, how do you figure that out? And so I was reading a similar thing. There was these Maimonides studies. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but there was these studies done in the 60s or 70s where it was a similar thing to, there was an agent and a receiver. So there was a receiver who went to sleep in a sleep lab, and then there was an agent in a whole separate room who kind of got randomly an art print from an envelope to look at. And so while the receiver was sleeping, this agent, bro, looked at this art print and tried to transmit it to the receiver. And once again, it showed that the receivers had statistically higher hits, and on the rankings of their dream symbols and all that shit, they had a lot of things in their dreams that correlated with the art print that the agent was looking at. So that kind of proved that you could send messages to someone telepathically while they were dreaming, right? And so that was something they theorized in the more recent studies with the students, is that maybe the people who had the problems were kind of, in a way, sending their issues telepathically to the students, or sending their issues telepathically out into the world or whatever. I don't know how that works, but I remember a while ago I was reading Wikipedia on telepathy, and I was reading, some people were dismissing it because on Wikipedia it said Richard Wiseman, Richard Wiseman, I don't know if you've heard of this guy. He's really a critic of all this paranormal shit, bro, and he's actually a researcher. So he's done a lot of studies to kind of disprove these types of experiments. And on Wikipedia, it said that the Maimonides studies, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, it said on Wikipedia, these were dismissed because Richard Wiseman tried to replicate them. And so that, of course, proved that dream telepathy wasn't real, and you can't replicate the study, so how can it be real? And so when I first read this, I was like, okay, yeah, that's fair. Maybe the telepathy thing is just bullshit. But I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna just blindly trust Wikipedia, bro. I'm not gonna blindly trust that. So I downloaded Richard Wiseman's study that Wikipedia said was a replication of the 60s or 70s one and discredited it or disproved it. So I started reading it and I was like, you know what? That is total fucking bullshit. He did not replicate the study done in the 60s at all. You know what he did is he got participants in the sleep lab for basically one night because they were in there for 2 nights, and the first night was basically just them getting used to the sleep lab, bro. And so remember the one with the students, they had weeks to incubate this dream. The Maimonides studies also only did it for 2 nights, but I think that was just so misleading to say it was a replication of those studies because they weren't having an agent and a receiver. They were not replicating shit. What they did is they got the participants to say, we're going to show you guys a random video the next day, and then you need to work out what this video is going to be from your dreams. And so they didn't figure out there was any correlation in these people's dreams compared to the random video they were shown the next day. So this wasn't about telepathy. This was about precognitive dreaming. This was a study on seeing, can the dream participants in the sleep lab just tell the future and tell what will happen in a day? So while that may discredit or disprove precognitive dreaming, of course I don't think you can disprove anything with one small little study. Fucking voice crack, I'm gonna go hang myself and never ever talk to you ever again, bro. But no, I thought that thing was so misleading that Wikipedia said that discredited the telepathy studies when Richard Wiseman was really studying a whole fucking different thing, bro. That was really sad because I read Wikipedia a lot and I've heard about them kind of spreading bullshit, but I didn't know it was that blatant, and it actually made me dismiss the telepathy studies, which is a shame because, you know, my fat ass, when I'm eating food or eating anything, I like to read Wikipedia studies, and it would be a shame to know that they're lying about the history of chocolate biscuits to spread their woke agenda, bro. To spread their woke liberal agenda, they're lying about the history of chocolate biscuits, bro. Now I will never believe Wikipedia ever again. But no, I'm kind of going off topic. But those studies are interesting as shit, because that literally is like, you can fucking telepathically, in a way, communicate with someone else's brain. Even if you don't know the person and you've never met them, just from a photo of them, how the fuck does that even make sense, bro? Like, what the fuck does that mean? So, you better watch out, because I may be stalking you in my dreams, buddy. I may be stalking you in my dreams. And it was just college students who got a little training on dream incubation. And dream incubation is very simple. You just tell yourself you're going to dream about a person. So I found that very interesting. I'll, of course, link the studies and everything if you want to read them, bro. But, like, that was crazy. Do not join the Discord. Dislike the video. Leave me a mean comment. Never, ever subscribe to me. Never join the Discord. Goodbye. Farewell. I love you. I love you. Goodbye.